Page of Swords here. I thought the eyes are quite interesting. This one here is quite clear. That one's a bit faded. There's the Earth of Air to me. Again, I'm still thinking about that one. I don't know about this. I wasn't too crazy about this depiction of the star, but then I recall the sense of terror that I felt when I first learned how to dive, and that kind of it was the beginning of the loss of my confidence with water, sadly. For a lot of people who are not confident with water, apparently learning how to dive really helped them with their confidence. I was very confident around water until then. So for me, it had the opposite effect, but I had a bit of a panic attack in the pool, but what I remember is that I look around, up and down, left and right, and around, and I could see no direction. I was completely lost. And that sense of, again, that light at the end of the tunnel, reminiscence of this one here, but with a tunnel, at least you see a direction. This is where the vast darkness of nothingness, and then you see, a spark of light that is a star. It gives you hope, doesn't it? Because it gives you a sense of direction. It also reminds me of the three wise men following that star as a guide to navigate their journey. And of course, a long, long time ago, before all the technology that we have today, the stars are pretty much what people rely on to navigate the vast nothingness that is the ocean, I suppose. And so if you are floating around in space all by yourself, it felt, I've seen enough science fiction to see the depiction of people being cut loose in the vast darkness of the universe. It's almost felt to me like being buried alive, but you are being buried alive in the vastness of things instead of the confine of a box. And to me, if you see a big light of some kind, I don't know, the star or something, it must give you hope, mustn't it? I don't know. That's what I think at the moment. So this is 10 of Wands, and so you can see someone being burdened, but here it's in the process of healing, and I'm assuming that this particular burden here in the Rider-Waite-Smith, you see someone carrying it. It is a big burden, but that person is walking. That person isn't flat on the ground. That person's actually walking with the burden forward. And so at least you can walk again. Hey, by then you can walk again. Because that's, or your hand, if that's your hand can function and carry all that, all these stars and move forward. It's heavy, it's hard, but at least you're moving, eh? So that's what occurred to me. This is the devil, which what occurred to me here, the devil is whatever you see looking back at you when you're looking into the mirror. That's all I have to say about that. This one here, the Eight of Swords, you can see this with the, because the point is facing this way, it gives a suggestion of darkness closing in rather than darkness being chased away, because the pointy part is facing this direction, and so that darkness closing in. This one here, the Seven of Swords. Seven of Swords often associated with being sneaky and being, I don't know, being sneaky, something like a thief and all that. And to me, I have learned to see the sevens and the odd numbers as the destabilization of the stability of the even numbers for the purposes of growth. In that you can't stay put because you'll die. If you're stagnated, you will eventually die. So in order to survive, you must keep moving, you must keep growing. In order to do that, you have to go through the instability of the odd numbers. And 7 is a destabilization of a 6. And if 4 is a stable point, by the time you get a stable point in the 6, you've gone through the 5. So the 6 is stronger in stability than the 4, because you managed to surmount the instability of the 5, for example. 7 then is another point of instability, and in this particular depiction, it looks like she is moving with 7 swords in her possession, it feels like she's carrying 7 swords. All of them are drawn, ready to be utilized, but she had to be very careful, has to be calculative or calculated in her choices as to which weapon to draw for this particular purpose. And I think sometimes we often confuse being calculated or being calculative and being smart and going around things as being sneaky and perhaps a little dishonorable. But being smart and going around things sometimes is the smart thing to do. Being calculative or calculated, being careful about your pros and your cons is sometimes necessary. It's sometimes the appropriate thing to do. It is not dishonorable. It's just a roundabout way of doing things. And I've seen the Seven of Swords in the Fountain Tarot as embracing your pain, not because of anything to do with the Seven of Swords as we understand it, but mainly because of the depiction. The depiction is so strong to me in a certain way, come across a certain way to me, that it broke me from, it helped me let go of the standard quote-unquote meaning of the Seven of Swords. And of course, combining with exploring the Marseille and all that, I begin to see Seven of Swords as you had the stability of the 6 now. And so when you break away from something that is stable as more than the 4, so very, very stable, it is actually, if you break away from something that works swimmingly, you're actually taking more risks. Because you take more risks, you can't be gung-ho about it. You have to be more deliberate, more careful, more delicate in your approach to risks. And so again, I feel that can come across perhaps as being sneaky or not direct enough. You don't confront things, but you go around things. You no longer wage war. You start a negotiation. You no longer scream at something or someone, but you sit down over tea and talk about something properly, which is why diplomacy is very important, sometimes more important than war when a lot is at stake. And so I see the Seven of Swords here as someone who has to carefully choose which swords to use of all the 7 that is already half drawn there. Again, I don't know what the handbook says, but that's what came to me. This one here is Judgment. I think somebody described the handbook as describing this as a woman emerging from a pile of blankets. What I saw initially is somebody, it reminds me of that really thickly layered, voluptuous kimono of the, what's the era? The 11th and 10th century Japan? It's not Edo. It's not Edo. It's Heian or Heian. That period, the period where the tale of Genji is from. If you Google Japan, 10th century, 11th century, I think 10th century, I think. The kimono is very full like this, and this reminds me very much of that. What's that got to do with judgment and resurrection and awakening? I don't know. But I think the blanket explanation is probably more, make more sense. You emerge from rest into a new day. You emerge again. You are awakened. You are resurrected, refreshed, renewed, with, yeah. This is the Four of Pentacles. Everything about this posture suggests protecting something that you value. And, if you have something that works, if you have something that is working for now, whether it's good enough or not, we often would rather not risk change, because whatever is working now is working. The devil that you know is better than the devil that you do not know. That's what comes to me when I see the Four of Pentacles. It's better the devil that you know. Yeah. The swords look like they're made of light, that they're not physical, so that it's in the mind. Queen of Wands, I have nothing in particular to say. Five of Pentacles, you see the lines here and the lines there, to me suggesting rib cage that is protruding a little bit over the skin, over the surface of the body, and this feels to me like a desert of salt, dry, and that particular lack of nourishment and lack of strength is echoed in this drying, limping plant over here. It's very, this feels very stark. But I always see the Five of Pentacles in conjunction with the Six of Pentacles, of that, the one that gives life energy, the chi. Where is it? In a variety, I highly recommend in any deck to see the Five Pentacles in conjunction with the Six. I will talk about that in a separate video because I have spoken about that a year or two ago, but I think it's time to refresh that topic, I think, at least in my own mind, so I might as well share it with you guys. You know, without this, there is no this. Without the lacking, there is no giving. Without the receiving, there is no giving. Anyway, I'll talk about that in a separate video. The Queen of Swords for me is the water of air. There's this wispy, soft flow against this very sharp, stark, angular sword. And that hand looks really quite gentle. It feels, instead of this, that kind of a gesture, the hand's very, it reminds me of a particular traditional dance movement that is really quite flowy and gentle. And it's almost looking as if she's whispering something. And that sense of gentleness here, that sense of gentleness here, water, air. It's water, but it's floating around on air, so it's the water of air. The softness of the sharp object here, so it worked for me. Ten of Pentacles. There is this yoga style, or this yoga rage. I don't know. I feel like I'm too old to understand some of these trends, where you have to, sorry, I thought someone was knocking at the door, where you have to do it as a couple. And so this is the Ten of Pentacles, and I'm assuming these two are a couple and their dog, and so a sense of fulfillment in the material world. King of Swords, again, that geometrical part here is interfering with the artwork. The air of air. King of Swords, don't have much to say about him. King of Cups, Knight of Cups, as opposed to the Knight of Wands. You remember him? The swaggering, where is he? The swaggering, tanned young man. And of course, I know people who I think is King of Cups, but they don't look like the King of Cups depicted here. You know, this guy here looked very like a poet, you know, somebody who's a writer, an artist, someone who drinks lots of coffee, writes lots of books, and someone who is intelligent, sensitive, someone who's perhaps physically not very active, more indoor rather than outdoor. You know, his skin is not tan, he's not particularly muscular. It's all stereotyping, of course. Okay, I can't seem to find that knight. Oh, there it is. I have separated him purposely. So, so the Knight of Cups. I know someone who, to me, he's a Knight of Cups, but he probably looked more like that than like that. So, yeah, I quite like that. The Queen of Cups, the water of water. This embrace. It just exudes a sense of protection, a sense of nurture, a sense of love, of warmth, of the heart, up in the chest, between the bosom. She's older, but her hair flows like a maiden. I think it's perfect. This is Seven of Wands, which I thought was interesting because this particular X looked like the rest of these branches, except for the head there. So almost as if this is a part of these guys, but it is standing apart from these guys, wanting to stand apart from these guys. with that head of the axe there. I thought that is interesting, the fact that the body of the axe is almost like a living branch. You know, the green still green, the leaf still green, coming out of which way. This is pretty standard. This world I really love because Urban Tarot, which is one of my core decks, has the character moving up a ladder, up like that towards the heights that way. And the world, as I've mentioned before, last year that I pulled to close my year ahead 2017 journey with, was just depicted as a fetus. And a fetus would eventually be born. And this feels like the woman is emerging out. It's like she's being birthed out. It's like if the Urban Tarot has the woman climbing up, it's almost as if at the end of that climb, if we were to move the camera from this angle to that angle, we would see this character who we can project ourselves onto moving up and up and out. And this is when the camera is up here instead of down here. So she emerged out and all is complete, and now she can begin again. The Knight of Swords, I always remember the Raven Prophecies depiction of the Knight of Swords as a pair of scissors with blood on it, and the phrase running with scissors is stuck in my mind every time I see Knight of Swords. And this could be two butterflies on either side of the sword, but in my mind this feels like a butterfly being sliced in half and be moving fast with sharp object, is Knight of Swords to me. This is the King of Wands, the heir of fire. He looks like a young old person or an old young person. Either way, it's quite interesting. The face is really smooth, but the hair is white. I've known people like this who are young, but they're very, very mature, very, very old. And then there are old people that I know of that I'm very fond of, and I have no issue with the word old. To me, the word old is not a bad word, so I'm going to say old, because to me old is not bad. I have friends who are old, but they are very young at the same time, and this is how this feels. I also quite like how this little branch sticks out as if it's growing out of his heart over here, and just sort of, it's almost as if he is a part of this growth and the growth is a part of him. So that's my initial thoughts on the cards from the Sasuraibito Tarot, and I really, really do like it. And I perhaps just wish that the design of the back and the design of the box is more in line with the artwork here, but it's not very important. And I allow myself to pretend and to indulge in the idea of these cards with that back, like that. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.